Thank you, Abba. If you need closed captioning on the meeting once the meeting starts, please click on the CC button at the bottom of the screen. All participants will be able to listen to this meeting via computer audio or by phone, and the council will be asking questions of the Chancellor, which they have gathered from the community in advance via survey. If you have a technical question at any time during the town hall, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen to type your question, and we will respond. Again, the Q&A feature of this meeting is for technical questions. If your Zoom name is different from the name you used to register and you would like to be renamed, you may also type this into the Q&A space and we will rename you. Now that I have shared how this meeting will work, I will now turn it over to the President of Community Education Council 28, Mr. Vijay Ramjatan. President Ramjatan, I am unmuting your line.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to CEC28's Town Hall with our special guest for tonight, Chancellor Richard Carranza. CET28 needs the voices of District 28 families. We need your guidance, and that is the reason we are so excited to host this Town Hall with the Chancellor. It is your time to be heard. We will get through as many questions as we can this evening, and on behalf of Community Education Council 28, we thank you and for your attendance and dedication to the students and families of the district. Thank you. We thank you for your patience as we take one more moment to ensure that those wishing to access interpretation can do so. Interpreters in the same order as before. Can you please repeat the instructions?
Buenas noches. Para las personas que deseen escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor, marquen desde sus teléfonos el número 888-475-4499 y el ID es el 735-255-0102, símbolo numeral. Nuevamente, el número para escuchar la reunión en español es el 888-475-4499 y el PIN o ID de la conferencia es el 735-255-0102, símbolo numeral. Si usted desea permanecer en esta sala de conferencia de Zoom para poder ver el video, por favor asegúrese de poner silencio en sus computadores para que no haya ruido de fondo y marque desde sus teléfonos la línea para interpretación simultánea al español, que es nuevamente el número 888-475-4499 y el ID 735-255-0102, símbolo numeral. Gracias. Thank you.
I'll be presenting the following announcement in Bangla one more time. যদি আপনারা বাংলা ভাষায় এখানে থাকতে চান এবং এই আলোচনা সভাটিতে যোগদান করতে চান ভিডিওর মাধ্যমে, তাহলে অবশ্যই যে নাম্বারে ফোন দিবেন সেই নাম্বারটি হচ্ছে 888-475-4499 এবং যে পিন নাম্বারটি আপনাকে দিতে হবে সেটি হচ্ছে 961-789-7416 এবং দুইবার করে আপনাকে পাউন্ড কিটা চাপতে হবে। যদি আমি আবারও বলছি নাম্বারটি, যে নাম্বারটিতে আপনাকে ফোন করতে হবে সেই নাম্বারটি হচ্ছে 888-475-4499 এবং যে পিন নাম্বারটি আপনাকে দিতে হবে সেটি হচ্ছে 961-789-7416 এবং দুইবার আপনাকে পাউন্ড কি চাপতে হবে। যদি আপনি এই আলোচনা সভাটিতে থাকতে চান ভিডিওর মাধ্যমে এবং শব্দ শুনতে চান, কথা শুনতে চান, তাহলে আপনি অবশ্যই নিশ্চিত করবেন আপনার যে কম্পিউটারে যে ভলিউমটি আছে সেটা না বন্ধ করা থাকে, মিউট করা থাকে এবং যখন আপনি ফোন লাইনে ফোন করবেন তখন যে নাম্বারটি আপনাকে দিতে হবে সেটি হচ্ছে 888-475-4499 এবং যে পিন নাম্বারটি আপনাকে চাপতে হবে সেটি হচ্ছে 961-789-7416 এবং দুইবার আপনাকে পাউন্ড কি চাপতে হবে। ধন্যবাদ। থ্যাংক ইউ।
大家晚上好，如果需要中文翻译的话，请拨打888-475-4499之后输入密码933-059-6663，井号键。 再重复一遍，如果大家需要中文普通话翻译，请拨打1888-475-4499之后输入密码933-059-6663，井号键。如果你想听收电话的同时也在电脑屏幕上看视频的话，请按静音键，谢谢。Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This time, I'd like to introduce our Queens South Executive Superintendent, Dr. Mauricia Ducavayer, but she will be joining us later on in the meeting. When she joins us, she has a conflict with our schedule today. At this time, my dear friends, it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce to all of you our Superintendent for District 28. Her name is Dr. Tammy Bate.
So hello and good evening, District 28 and all of our visitors. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight. This is a very important conversation and one we have waited eagerly to have with our Chancellor, our own Chancellor Carranza. Sir, it is a pleasure to welcome you to District 28. I dare say, the most wonderful district in all of your districts in the New York City Department of Education. They know that let me say it, I rep hard for us, and this is our house. And so it is a real pleasure to have you with us on today so that we can speak about the things that concern us most and help us to light the way moving forward. And so I'm going to leave my greetings there. Thank you so much, everyone who is here. And BJ, I'm voting for you, 999, 1,000. We're getting those numbers up tonight. They're coming in by loads. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Peter, for all you do for our amazing district. You are wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And also, I just want to acknowledge our Family Leadership Coordinator for District 28, who is Sonia Rueda. She's on, and later on she'll be joining us for questions in the other half of our meeting. So at this time, my dear friends, it gives me a great honor, pleasure to introduce to you our Chancellor. Please welcome Chancellor Richard Carranza.
Thank you so much, President Remjan, and I want to thank you all for having me join you here in District 28. It's good to be with you, although virtually. It's good to be with you this evening, and I want to give special thanks to all of the parents who worked a long day today and all of the educators who worked a long day today and are here with us as well today. Thank you for joining us. A special shout out to Dr. Pate, our superintendent. Thank you for that welcome. And I know that Executive Superintendent Ducavayer is going to join us in just a little bit. And we'll welcome her into the circle of communication when she gets here. I've said it time and time again, we are just so proud of our students, our educators, and our families. You've shown heroic optimism and determination to achieve in the face of unthinkable obstacles. So today I want to share some updates on what our students are experiencing in a school year that has been like no other in any of our lives or in the history of the Department of Education. So first, I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't done so already, please fill out the school experience survey. Now, I understand there may be survey fatigue, but this is really, really important because we want to hear from, and tomorrow's the deadline, so we need to do this soon. We're asking families, and it's so important because we're asking families and staff in all grades and students in grades 6 through 12 to share their school experience with us, whether it's been fully remote or blended learning. We want to get better. We want to do better. We want to serve our community better. And the only way we can do that is to hear from you. The school experience survey is available in 10 languages. So your answers will help us plan, improve remote and in-person learning in the months to come. Please fill it out yourself, or if your child is old enough, please encourage them to fill it out as well. And it's available at schools.nyc.gov/experience survey. Remember, tomorrow's the last day, so you really do need to fill it out tonight or tomorrow so that we get your voice heard. Next, I want to remind everyone about middle school applications, which are open until February 9th. 5th grade families can visit myschools.nyc or call 311 to explore their options and apply. Again, that's myschools.nyc or call 311 to explore what their options are and apply. If you need help, the Family Welcome Centers are available virtually as well. So go to schools.nyc.gov to get in touch. You're gonna hear me say that quite a bit because schools.nyc.gov is our homepage, and we've revamped it. It's available in multiple languages. It's really a good resource for all families. We announced the removal of academic screens and auditions and other assessments for this year's admissions process to middle schools, especially in a year like this when COVID-19 has laid bare the vast inequities in our system for all to see. It would just be untenable to use screens for the admissions process this year. We just don't have the data. We don't have the usual data that we would use in an admissions process. In high school admissions, applications for 8th graders and first-time 9th graders are due by February 23rd. So similar to middle school admissions process changes, we've also made high school admissions process much simpler and more equitable for all families. First of these changes is geographic or location-based admissions priorities will be phased out over the next 2 years. This means that after next year, the location of a student's home cannot solely determine their chances of getting into a certain school. This is going to open up much more opportunity for students across all 5 boroughs. District priorities for high school admissions will be permanently eliminated this year, and all other geographic priorities like borough residence requirements will be eliminated next year. Screen school programs can use a combination of the 2018-19 state test scores, previous year's grades, and/or other measures to rank applicants. Again, you can find any program's screening criteria on their My School page. So visit those pages and see what those schools are requiring. If your child would like to apply to the LaGuardia High School of Music and Performing Arts, you can apply by registering to audition and then submit the audition materials. The SAT test is not used for admissions to LaGuardia High School. It's solely by audition. This year, high schools that require auditions, including LaGuardia, will be taking those auditions virtually. So families have until February 23rd to register for those, not only for the admissions, but also for the auditions. I know that CE members and families in this district want to learn more about resources that you can use during the pandemic to support students. So I'm excited and proud of our pioneering online platform called Parent University. This offers a catalog of courses and live events and activities. The platform offers all New York City parents and guardians access to live and on-demand courses and resources from across multiple subject areas and grade bands. Over 95 courses include topics from remote learning and technology to early childhood education to supporting your children in a remote learning environment. The courses are available in multiple languages, and we're working on expanding the number of multilingual offerings that are curated on the site. Every department now has a directive from me that they will develop in everything that they do some kind of a course to be included on Parent University so that parents can also understand what it is that we're doing. All families can create a free account, and you can register for workshops free of charge. You can access all of these courses at parentu.schools.nyc. That's parentu.schools.nyc. Check it out. I think you're going to like it. So I also want to address just a few issues that I know are top of mind for all of you. In this age of virtual learning, I want to reassure everyone that we hold student privacy as a non-negotiable priority. We've been adhering to the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, commonly known as FERPA, which is a federal law that strictly protects the privacy of student education records, as well as all of the New York State regulations around privacy. Both protect student privacy on digital platforms such as Teams, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google, etc. In fact, you may remember that for a time last year, we stopped using Zoom until they strengthened their privacy and security measures to our satisfaction. Some of you have also expressed concerns about COVID-19 testing for students and staff. Our in-school testing program is going strong, Every school that is open, every school building that is open has 20% of its staff and students in the building randomly selected for testing once a week. This is up from when we first opened, it was once a month. Now it's once a week. So there are 21 sites across the city that still offer prioritized testing for both DOE staff and students, and it's absolutely free, but it has to be a city site. I know that there's some understandable worry about the citywide rise in COVID-19 cases and the issues with vaccine supply. I share that concern with you and want you to know that the city is doing everything possible to work with the federal government to receive more vaccine. We have assurances that that is happening. And we haven't stopped working to get our school-based staff vaccinated either. They are frontline workers without a doubt. So we hope that as more vaccine becomes available very, very soon, no staff member has to wait any longer to be vaccinated. We're also continuing to enforce the core 4 in our school buildings to prevent the spread of COVID-19, physical distancing, wearing of face coverings, good hand hygiene, staying home and sick, and I'm gonna add a 5th one, proper ventilation in our buildings. All of these have worked to make it so that truly the safest indoor spaces in the city of New York are the classrooms in the New York City Department of Education based on all of the metrics. We know these things are working because the citywide COVID-19 positivity rate in schools is 0.54%, which is much lower than the city's overall rate of more than 8%. So this is working. And this is all due to the hard work of our amazing school staff, your children, and all of us working to make sure that we're following all of these directions to keep our schools open and our children safe. So in closing, because everyone has been such a collaborative and resilient partner this school year, I want to appeal to all of you to continue to work closely with us. While there are many things that are different this school year, what remains consistent is our commitment to each other as members of the DOE family and as New Yorkers. So in order to stay informed on any COVID-19 developments at your child's school, we encourage families to sign up for a New York City Schools account so that we can contact you via phone, email, or even text message. So please reach out to your school's parent coordinator if you do not have yet a New York City Schools account so we can get you signed up. Or you can visit schools.nyc.gov/NYCSATO, and you can learn more there and sign up for an account. One last reminder, despite all of the change and uncertainty, one thing never changes: your health and safety and the safety of our children and staff. So thank you for being here this evening. I look forward to engaging in a conversation and answering as many questions as we can. And I want to thank President Ramjan for the opportunity to be here. And sir, I'm going to turn it back over to you so that we can start with questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chancellor. So our dear community, we received 50 questions in advance of this town hall night. And we have identified commonly raised issues from our community, which the CEC members will ask tonight. We conducted a survey of the 28 community from which we have gathered these questions. So we'll move right into it. And the first question to you, Chancellor, is from Jessica Zillow, and she is a parent and a guardian. Her children goes to school at Q220, and she's also one of our co-presidents of President's Council in our district. Her question to you is, what is your plan on reimagining the GNT program? And how will you make sure the children who need accelerated learning receive this service?
Yes, so we've publicly been very, very public about the fact that we're going to engage families across the city of New York in a discussion around what is the pedagogy around supporting students that are academically gifted. What is it? Not just in New York City, but what is the research base say it is? What is proven to be good practices? What do others around the United States and around the world do to accelerate learning and really enrich learning for students that are academically advanced? So that is going to be part of our engagement process. So obviously we at this point don't have a test because that hasn't been approved to be able to take the test this year. So we're working right now with a group of experts and as well as our experts in the DOE around what that process will be this year. So the plan that we announced earlier this year was an equitable and long-term path forward for G&T, but we've had a wrinkle thrown in it. So that last minute change for families during an already challenging time shouldn't be something that adds more stress to families. So we're going to address the next steps as soon as possible for families. In fact, I just had a meeting today with my staff on this to get an update on where we are. And it will be very quickly that we will come to the community around what the immediate next steps are for the enrollment for next year, and then the enrollment and the engagement plan for the longer term reimagining of what is services for students that are academically gifted.
Thank you. Next question is from Erica Cooper.
Yes, hi, hello, Chancellor, thank you. My name is Erica Cooper. I'm the recording secretary of District 28. I have the pleasure of reading a question from a parent of a child in Q144 in Forest Hill, which is our elementary school. Mindy Soy is the parent's name, and her question goes as follows. Will the Department of Education be more transparent in their efforts this summer to devise a plan that will be both safe and effective for reopening school in the fall? Her second part of the question is there any way to see if a summer school option is available for certain kids who had fallen through the cracks during the remote learning?
Yeah, look, let me answer both of these questions, and I'm going to kind of interrelate these questions. So I completely understand and am very empathetic to the pain that families have felt. It's felt like things change on a dime. It's felt like things are going in one direction, then there's something else that happens. If I could just remind us that as we entered the holiday season in December, no one was talking about mutant variants of COVID-19. We didn't know about the UK strain. We didn't know about the South African strain. We didn't know about the Brazilian strain. Now we do. And the reason I give that as context is that at every step along the way, as it pertains to COVID-19, there have been twists and turns and new developments and late breaking developments. There's been conflicting guidance. And again, I'm not trying to be political about this, but it's a fact because I lived it, that the last federal administration was not thoroughly engaged in giving guidance to the states, much less giving guidance to school systems around safety protocols, around reopening protocols, around just basic scientific data. The good news is that's changed since January 20th. And I can tell you that we are much more connected and aligned from the federal to the state, to the city, to the district. But even with that, things are changing on an ever moving process. So when I say I understand the frustration that parents must feel, I truly understand that. And I understand how that may seem like it's not being transparent. I assure you, it's not that we wake up every morning and say, how can we be not transparent with parents? What happens is things move very quickly. And as things move very quickly, we have to, in consultation with the medical experts, in consultation with every expert that has something to say about that particular new data set, we have to make decisions in real time to make sure that the foundational pillars that we've talked about, keeping our students safe and those that serve our students safe, that we do what we need to do so that we are in fact keeping people safe. And that means that we don't often have the time or the luxury of having a full-blown engagement, having town halls, getting input, having people look at the plan and give us feedback of the plan. Would I like to do that? Absolutely, I'd like to do that. With COVID-19, we haven't been able to do that. So as much as possible where we can do that, we will continue to do that. But I will also be just very transparent that if that is the expectation, I can't make that commitment only because I don't know what the virus is going to do as we go into the summer months. I can't predict what's going to happen with the vaccines. I can't predict whether or not the vaccines we already have are going to prove to be as effective on these new mutant viruses. I don't know that. So things are going to have to continue to be decided in real time as data, as issues, as the complexity of this virus becomes available. So my commitment to you, though, is at every opportunity, as far in advance as possible, we are going to be as transparent as possible. And I apologize up front if it seems like we're not being transparent. I want to reassure you that's not what we're trying to do. Now, as it pertains to what will happen for summer, absolutely. Last summer, we were able to put together a summer program for students that had 12-month IEPs that proved to be very, very successful for students that took part in that. And we're going to announce our summer school plans and conduct outreach to families earlier this year than we did even last year, because we're already working on that. We're going to have more to share on that very quickly in the spring. And I want to thank the CEC for this question, because we're going to incorporate it as part of our planning discussion as we go forward. But again, we're committed to addressing the learning loss, the regression in learning that has happened due to COVID-19 and remote learning, and really supporting our students as we go forward. If you don't mind, I just want to say one thing here that is really important. Because it relates directly to this and many other questions that I assume I'm going to be asked this evening. In the most recent stimulus bill that was approved and sent to the states to be allocated to school systems, there was $2.1 billion in that stimulus bill directly sent to New York City. And that was not only to pay for all of the enhanced PPE, the enhanced cleaning, all of the new ventilation systems, but it was also to help us with standing up the trauma-informed supports that we're going to be rolling out for all students, because we know that students have been traumatized. It was also around hiring additional social workers, additional counselors. It was about putting together a full-blown extended summer school program so that any student that wants to be part of it could have an extended summer school experience so that they could make up for this. All of this isn't free, but there was $2.1 billion that was supposed to come to New York City. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is that the executive, the governor, has announced in his budget that New York City will get an increase in funding of over $100 million. That sounds fine and good, but what happened to the other billions of dollars? The state of New York is proposing to take that money to fill the state's budget hole while giving us $100 million. So in essence, the state, the governor's office, is proposing to balance the state's budget on the backs of our children. I need to sound that alarm. I need to sound that call, because summer school, continued technology, continued supports for students, you name it, to help support our students because of this traumatic event called COVID-19 is in jeopardy if we don't in fact get the money that was marked for the students of New York City. So instead of supplanting, we need to supplement what we're getting in New York City, because that goes directly to students. It goes directly to schools. It goes directly to these kinds of programs as we go forward. So I want to mention that here, because not because I want to be political, but I want you to understand the money meant for our children is being taken by the state of New York. And it's my job as your chancellor to let you know somebody's hand is in our pocket. We need to all say, stop balancing the state's budget on the backs of our children.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our next question will be from Howard Pollock.
Thank you, Chancellor, for coming to our CEC. Before I launch into our question, I just want to let you know how fortunate we are to have Dr. Pate and her team representing us. Their caring and dedication are well known. We're very lucky to have them. This question is from the entire CEC. Diversity planning in District 28 has brought up many questions from all sides of our district, including but not limited to long travel concerns for students, no available seats in schools, equal chances to get into a school anywhere in the district, addressing the lack of resources for many schools, including the lack of highly skilled teachers. In light of the above, sir, we have a three-part question. Number one, What is the status of the D28 diversity plan? Number 2, what will be done to address the concerns of parents? And number 3, how can we ensure that all parents' voices are heard and not just the loudest ones? Thank you, Chancellor.
Yeah, Mr. Pollock, thank you so much for that question. And thank you for, in the body of that question, really illuminating these very weighty issues that come with a discussion of any kind of diversity plan. I think you nailed it right on the head. So I'm going to answer the questions that I can, and then I'm going to call on our resident expert, Dr. Tammy Pate, to give us some more specific information, and Dr. Govia, if she's joined us. So let me start with the WXY question. So because of COVID-19 related issues, we literally, and remember, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but we have not been additionally funded to address the needs related to COVID-19. So literally, we have been robbing Peter to pay Paul. And the priority has been that all COVID-19 related expenses take priority over any other very important issues, but we've paused all other contracts that are not directly related to the COVID-19 response. Because of that, WXY, their contract is currently paused. It's not canceled, it's not eliminated, it's just paused. But it is 110% related to the fact that we've had to move resources to be able to buy the PPE, to be able to buy the filters, to be able to buy the disinfectant, to make sure every school has the 30-day supply, to buy over 500,000 iPads with LTE connection. All of those things, we've had to move the money. It's on pause. Now, on the issue of what will be done to address the concerns of our parents, look, we've heard from parents and families in District 28 that there needs to be a robust community engagement process to gather input from across the district and not just from the loudest voices. So once it's safe to do so, our plan is to fully resume school-based meetings at elementary and middle schools and to have public workshops to synthesize feedback and facilitate community conversations. I've seen that process happen in other districts, actually working with WXY, and I can tell you it works exceptionally well because it balances the voices of everyone so that you truly, truly have an integrated plan so that everybody's voice is represented. Now, how are we going to ensure that parents' voices are heard and not just the loudest voices? This is one of the most important points to us because utilizing many different ways to hear from a variety of voices from every corner of the district and in languages that are not just English, we feel that that is one of the most important aspects of any kind of a process. So engagement opportunities may include school-based small group discussions. It may be in-language conversations. It may be district-wide large meetings. It could be small group breakouts. Ultimately, we'll respond to community needs. And if you like to see other ways of us getting involved, we welcome. And Dr. Pate really gathers input. We'd love to hear what you are thinking, that what do you think that we might have missed? So with that, I'd also like to ask Dr. Pate if she wouldn't mind to just update us. What's the status of the D28 diversity plan?
Thank you so much, our Chancellor. I would say this, that we probably speak about diversity plan during every single CEC meeting. It is something that is very front of mind for our communities and the intended impact that it's going to have as a full circle, right? So the way we launched the program, we get some response, and in listening to the response, we learned that we could have done a better job of outreach and a better job of sort of community engagement. And so when we were able to effect a reset following the mayor's town hall meeting, we did exactly that. And to your point, we had planned to engage communities school by school and to collect feedback and to also look into the diversity plan working group, and then COVID. And so we have been meeting, or we've had conversations about the diversity plan every month since that time. And we have members on our CEC that do a great job of pushing forward this agenda to ensure that communities are well informed about the progress of the grant. or whatever status it is, and then collecting feedback. So in January, January 7th, we did meet with Campamore and community engagement or representatives, and we talked about the diversity working group and some of the ideas around recanvassing or opening up the selection of a diversity group, when and if that should be become a reality. One of the things that we really did spend a lot of time discussing is the DOE 2021 Student Achievement Plan and how we were going to integrate that into a diversity conversation. And I'm sorry that my email is pinging, probably driving people crazy. I'm sorry. This is our life. But we really have intentionality around ensuring that the plans we decide on moving forward is both equitable and has, you know, sort of sound, sound is not the word, that we are doing, making moves or making decisions with regard to student enrollment that addresses all of our community interests. In this district, and many of you will know this about me, I've made it I've not shared any words around this, that my job is to represent the interests of my entire community. That's my job. That's my job. I take that very seriously. You all have spent some time this year getting to know me. And when I say that I advocate for the District 28, I mean that with everything in me. As an educator, as a parent of a child who is enrolled in a District 28 high school, this is a very sort of immediate conversation for me. What we do promise is that when we move forward with diversity, that will be a community discussion, as it is at this very moment. And as soon as we, as the Chancellor has already said, we know that we're in a fiscal crisis right now, right? We know that. No one is confused about that. When things, or when we are able to move forward with this conversation, you are going to be at the forefront of it, because I'm going to be at the forefront of that. And that is what has been promised to us. We're going to ensure that that happens.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Chancellor, also for answering the question. And thank you, Howard. At this time, we have a question from our CC member, Rajwinder Kaur. Rajwinder?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chancellor, for giving us the precious time. So I have a question from the parent of school PS 190. The parent's name is Ayumi Tamaki. Her question is, why are the middle schools and the high schools in New York City closed completely when the schools in Long Island, Connecticut, and other areas are open? Even one day a week would serve all the children better.
Yeah, thank you. So first and foremost, health and safety guidelines drive all of our decisions. When you look at what is happening in terms of the schools that are open for in-person learning in New York City, we have set such a high standard that no one else is testing once a week random samples. No one else has the level of, every school has 30 days of PPE and disinfection supplies on hand every single day. The amount of work that we've done to our ventilation systems and all the test and trace, the situation room, which monitors if there's a positive case, and then we immediately do the test and trace. Let me be very clear, no one else does the level of safety that we're doing in New York City, which has allowed us to have the remarkable low rate that I mentioned in my opening remarks. So I want to assure you that we are in conversations right now about do we now have the additional capacity in all of those areas to now bring middle schools back? And when will that be? And then do we have the plan and the capacity building to bring the high schools back to still ensure that once a week randomized testing, that situation room response, that all of those things that I talked about? We want to make sure, because we're not going to gamble with the lives of our students or those that serve them, we want to make sure that all of those things are in place as we bring back the additional grade bands. So I would say to anyone listening, in terms of middle schools, there's going to be more to say about middle schools very soon, and then more to say about high schools shortly thereafter. That being said, we all have a role to play in this. And the role that we have to play in this is this. New York, back in March and April of 2020, was the epicenter of the United States of community spread of COVID-19. There was nowhere that was worse. Yet because all of us paid attention to what the doctors told us, all of us paid attention and socially distanced and didn't congregate and wore our masks and disinfected and washed our hands. Because we did that, we were able to suppress the community spread of the virus to the lowest point that made it possible for us to be the first and the only still of the 10 largest school systems in America to open our schools to in-person learning. Unfortunately, over the holidays, people, and I understand, but people didn't follow some of those things, and you saw what happened. We are now starting to suppress that community spread again. So the reason I say this, and I'm not a physician, but the reason I say this is I want to open our schools, and I want to keep them open, and I want to keep them open safely, just like I know that you do. But the only way that we're going to be able to do that is for us to continue to do our part, which is follow all of those guidelines and guidance so that we can lower the community spread, so that it makes it possible for us not to have so much testing every single day, makes it possible for us not to have all of those positive cases that go to the situation room. And it makes it possible for us, as we distribute vaccine and get those shots into the arms of our teachers and our school personnel, to start building the immunity in the community that will make it possible for us to open our doors to all students. That's what all of us can do. We may not be physicians, but that's what we can do. And like I said, more information about middle schools very soon, and more information about high schools very soon after that. And we're working very hard to make that happen.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question, and thank you, Chancellor, for answering. It gives me great honor also to introduce our Queens South Executive Superintendent. She has just joined us, and we want to acknowledge her and give a few remarks.
Thank you, Principal President Johnson. How are you? Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you. CEC28, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Maury DeGovai. If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, I'm the Queens South Executive Superintendent Chancellor. Welcome to District 28. I'm sure the conversation has been vibrant and lively. This is an awesome group of people. So I'm gonna let the Chancellor have his time, and I'm gonna be hanging out here until 8 o'clock. So I look forward to hearing your questions, concerns, and sharing some updates as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. So the next question we're gonna have, and move right into it, is from Elena Amenova. Elena, please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chancellor Carranza, for being here with us today. The question that I have is from a parent of JHS 157, Housley Junior High School. Parent's name is Dawn Flynn. The question is, are there plans to remove academic tracking systems, i.e. honor programs, in middle schools?
Yeah, you know, this is a question that's that I've learned is decided by individual schools. This is really a school-based decision. And I've been in enough schools around the city in all 5 boroughs to know that school leaders are really trying to make the best decisions, and including their communities in making these decisions. So in terms of the DOE, there are no current plans to make a system-wide decision about this at this time, but we do know that there are a number of schools that are having conversations with their communities. So you should have no surprises. You should have had a conversation if that is also okay. So if that's going to happen, so I would encourage you to make sure that you're in contact with your school community and your principal and the school SLT if there are any of those kinds of conversations happening. Dr. Pate, Dr. DeGovia, do you want to add anything to that?
Govaya. I'm sorry, maybe the signal may be a little weak.
I'm sorry, I'm having sound issues. So give me 1 second. I'm sorry, Chancellor, I'm having sound issues.
That's okay.
Yes, our current programs that offer honors programs are still very much in place. And you know, as we are engaging this conversation of how do we move forward, those conversations will continue at the school level. And, we push for excellence in D28. We are a district of excellence. And so that is just one way that students are allowed to showcase and show up for what we know and are able to do. And so we're going to continue to press excellence of every kind for every community. Sorry,
was she going to speak or?
I don't know if we have gotten the sound back on your.
I believe
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jesse. Let me tell you, I have become so resilient about technology. I'm sorry. Could you just give me the highlight of the question again? I was going in and out, and I heard the Chancellor calling me, but it was crackling on my end.
Sure. The question was, are there plans to remove academic tracking systems, i.e. honor programs, in middle schools?
As of this point, officially, no. I would say the answer is no at this point, and with the idea that we are still keeping the academic robustness going within our schools, and also looking at our Equity for All agenda and ensuring that all of our children are actually positioned in a powerful way to engage with the curriculum. I feel that at this point, nothing official has been put into place to dismiss that, but I know that school communities, and I'm sure Dr. Pate may have spoken to this as well, that they are in conversation with their instructional leadership teams to think about ways in which we are going to be closing the gap that has happened within our COVID learning loss time, and ensuring at the same time that our children are moving forward. So the short answer is no, but there's a lot of conversation at this point, really considering what are the ways in which we can really make sure all of our learners, whether they are ELDs or our special education students, or they're in our general education courses, that they are winning. And that's the main conversation, I would say, over tracking students or taking away tracking at this point.
Thank you so much. Next question we're going to have from Ms. Ted Chang.
Welcome to our district chancellor. The question I have is from PS 54 from Rosario Loja, and the original question was submitted in Spanish, so I'm going to be reading it in a language that is not my native language, and so I may mess it up, but that's an experience for all of the immigrant families in our district. That is speaking at a parent meeting or some other public session that's an anxiety and experience that many of our immigrant families have experienced. So in Spanish, por las circunstancias que estamos viviendo, que nos recomienda seguir tomando clases remotas, o es mejor que los niños regresen a sus aulas para un mejor aprendizaje, o es lo mismo por remoto. And in English, due to the circumstances we are experiencing, do you recommend remote classes? Or is it better that the children return to their classrooms? Which is better, in-person or remote?
Mr. Chang, I'm going to give you an A+ on your Spanish. That was fantastic. Yeah, so that was wonderful. Okay, that was great. So I know we have our Spanish language interpreter, so typically if we were in person, I would honor the person that asked the question by answering it in Spanish, and then I would translate into English. But since we're remotely and we want to get as many questions, I'm going to depend on our incredible Spanish translators, and I will answer in English, okay? So all of us that are educators will say that you cannot replace a well-trained, caring teacher in a classroom with students with technology. You just can't. There is no way that will ever replace that will ever be replaced. So I feel to my core, and I'm not going to put our superintendent or executive superintendent on the hot seat either, but I feel I can talk for them that as educators, that is always the best. What has been so difficult about the pandemic is that because it's a matter of life and death, we've had to pivot to another reality. And what we've really been trying to do since March of 2020, when we pivoted to remote learning, is to continue to make remote learning and that experience better and better and better for our students. to give our teachers more and more support to be able to do what they do in that environment. We've also been working to give parents as much support because parents have become de facto teaching assistants during this pandemic. And the vast majority of our parents, unless you're a former teacher, you didn't train to be a teacher. So how do we support you in helping to support students, your children, in this remote learning environment? But I will tell you that because we recognize that students don't just get reading, writing, and arithmetic in school. Many of our students get the only meals that they will eat that are balanced and nutritious in school. Many of our students get their health care in the community schools clinics. Many of our students get their dental care. Many of our students get their social emotional supports in school. Many students, unfortunately, and it breaks my heart, but this is a reality, the adults that care for them are the adults that they see in school. So for us, that's why we pulled out all of the stops and did everything we needed to do to make sure that we could open schools safely, obviously, but we could open schools for in-person learning for our students because we know that students were, in many cases, very much in a difficult situation, not having that ability to come to schools. So we always think it's the best option to come to in-person if you can. Now, with that said, let me be very clear-eyed about where we've been in New York City. And I think since the day I stepped foot in New York City, I've been talking about historically underserved, historically under-resourced, historically underutilized communities in our city. And in some cases, people listened. And in some cases, people criticized that I would talk that way about communities. But what I think that this pandemic has really illustrated, if you were to take a map pre-COVID-19 that indicated all of those historically underserved communities, and then overlay a map of March through June of 2020, and who was hardest hit, disproportionately who was hardest hit. Pardon me for being just very unvarnished. Who was killed due to COVID-19? You would find almost a perfect match. So what this pandemic has laid bare is that you cannot argue that the historic underserving, the historic under-resourcing, the historic under taking care of certain communities in our city also has led to the fact that certain communities in New York City have been disproportionately impacted by this COVID-19 virus. Now, why do I say that? Because I just talked passionately about why the best experience is in person, but I also understand that if you're a parent who's lost relatives, if you're a student who has lost relatives, if you've lost people and have gone through that trauma during this pandemic, I can understand why you would say, wait a minute, I'm not going back to in person. I'm going to choose remote learning until there is a vaccine, until there is community immunity, because I'm not going to put my child, given all I've experienced during this pandemic, in a situation where they even have a chance of being exposed. I understand that. I can't empathize because I haven't experienced that. Although I will, point of personal information, I've lost 9 family members and friends to COVID-19. So I understand the pain. And I think that's why I can understand where a family would say, I'm not going to do it. So to answer your question, and it's a hard question to answer with just a yes or no, the best place for children is in school with the caring, well-trained adult who is taking care of them and all of the other things that happen. But if you, because of whatever reason, decide that's not what your situation is and you choose remote, we are continuing to work every day to make that remote experience as the best experience it can be for your children. And I have to tell you, I have heard from parents who have said, my children didn't do well in school for a lot of different reasons, and they've been thriving in the remote environment. I've heard from those parents too. So it's not a one size fits all. So we're trusting that families understand their own needs and are making the best decisions and the right decisions based on who they are, what circumstances they're in. And our job is to build both systems and maintain both systems so that we're giving the best experience, whether it's blended or completely in person or remote, to our students until we can all get to the other side of this pandemic.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you for that question. Ted, we have 3 more questions, Chancellor, and we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to knock it out. Let's do this, right?
You're good. I'm going to be shorter.
Thank you. Next question is from Barbara Williams.
Good evening, y'all. Thank you all for coming. Good evening, Chancellor Carranza. It's a pleasure having you with us today. My question is from Miss Meryl Casanova, a parent of Q206. 1, how will a ENL student and student with IEP be able to fill in the gaps when the school year has been so haphazard? 2, how are you planning any bold program to support these students specifically? And 3, realistically, how would the city proceed with state testing for all students? Any alternative?
Yeah, so I'll answer them backwards. So state testing, that's not a city decision, that's a state decision, because the state requires us to implement the standardized test. But it's actually not even the state's decision, because the state has to seek a waiver if they're going to waive that state test from the federal government. The bad news, the good news is that we received a waiver, the state of New York, last year, so we didn't administer the spring test last year. And the good news is also that the previous federal administration had already indicated they were not going to grant any waivers this year. The good news is we have a new federal administration, and we have a new Secretary of Education that has actually been an educator and understands and has actually led a state during a time of COVID, and understands why that is just impracticable and not useful. So we are very hopeful, and we have supported the state of New York's application for a waiver again this year, because we're not out of COVID yet. So how would we even administer, much less what are we administering, because kids have had such a haphazard year this year. So that's where we stand with that. The second part of your question, are we planning any bold programs? Absolutely. So last year we implemented a summer school program for students with 12-month IEPs. I'm happy to tell you it went very, very well. A lot of students took part in that program. We are planning to do it even bigger this year. So those details will be coming forward very, very soon. I'm going to put a little asterisk there and just remind us about the funding issue that I talked about earlier, where somebody's got their hand in our pocket. We need those dollars specifically for these kinds of programs to make sure that we have bigger and more robust programs as we go forward. The first program about ENL students and students with IEPs, since March, students with IEPs have been the forefront of our planning, both for remote and for the return to in-person services. In fact, we were the first major school system in America to offer in-person special education services, even in the height. And I want to give a lot of credit to our teachers, where even in the height of the community spread, they went in and gave in-person supports to students. So our centrally funded IEP teachers are currently serving about 960 schools. They're providing evidence-based literacy interventions to students with IEPs and students at risk. They're doing it both in person and remotely. And then the IEP goals are being progress monitored by special education teachers and related service providers. So lots more I can share, but the answer to number one is yes. Answer number two is yes. As long as we get our money, don't let them take our money. And number three, hopefully that was understood as well.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. Next question is from Andy Midas-King. Andy?
Yes, good night, everyone. Good night, Chancellor. I'm happy that you can be part of our meeting tonight. I'm going to be short and brief. As a father of 2 children, that both of them in the gifted and talented program, I wish if you can find another solution to what is going on. But my question comes from Ari Freeman from Q196. And the question read, what are you doing to coordinate with other NYC agencies to ensure equality for all students? Is it possible to speed up the rollout of high-speed internet to shelters? Now, Chancellor, I'm asking you this question because it is deep within my heart, because I work with less fortunate children on my own through my organization. And we work through sports and getting children into colleges. And there's a lot of children that are struggling right now in New York City shelters that have never not been part of school during this pandemic year. So, Mr. Chancellor, somehow, someway, the city need to fix this disaster.
So I do not disagree with you, and what I would say to you is that the vulnerable students in our system continue to receive our utmost attention and the critical supports and services that they need. I can tell you for students in shelters, we've distributed over 500,000 iPads that have LTE cards. Now, the reason that we have LTE cards is that provides without Wi-Fi connectivity, which there's a number of those shelters that do not have Wi-Fi connectivity. But those LTE cards allows them to connect to the internet. And as we've learned of connectivity problems, even with the LTE cards, we literally have had people go to those shelters and physically, one by one, switch out the cards from one provider to another provider to get better coverage for those students. At the same time, we're working with city agencies and with other businesses, providers, Wi-Fi providers, to actually start installing hardwiring Wi-Fi in all of the shelters in New York City. We have over 300 plus field-based staff that are equipped with resources that are in the shelters working with our students. We have Bridging the Gap social workers that are providing teletherapy and remote counseling to students in temporary housing. We also stood up a dedicated help desk to support students in temporary housing with their technology needs. And again, I talked about the iPads that we've distributed. We've also, the city is working, as I mentioned, to install Wi-Fi. Installation is already complete with Wi-Fi at 26 of our shelters in New York City, with a plan for more to come. So again, we're moving as quickly as possible to make sure that all of our students are connected. And I can tell you, I've seen firsthand for some of the students that we're talking about, we talk about connectivity and the devices from the lens of the student participating in the instructional program. But what I can also tell you that in many of those cases, the addition of a device along with the internet connectivity has made it possible for the first time that family is now connected to the internet. So the ability for those parents to look for jobs, for those parents to look for resources in their native language, connect to city services, you name it, advocate for their children, now is literally in their laptop. So we're really proud of that work, but we're also not resting on that work because we know that there's much more need in our city, and we're not going to stop working to make sure that we're able to provide more students with that resource. By the way, that's also part of the $2 billion that we need to be able to make sure we continue to provide those resources.
Thank you, Chancellor. Our last question for the night will be from Robert Tamayev.
Hi, good evening, Chancellor. My question comes from Natifa Lewis from Q312. So as the mother of twins entering middle school, I'm concerned at the lack of opportunity to place them together with the current lottery system for 2021-2022. Sorry. Last year, District 15 successfully launched a petition to have that accommodated for this school year. Can that petition be used as a precedent to have twin priority reinstated for this year? And personally, I'd like to add whether that can also be for siblings as well.
Yeah, so I appreciate you illustrating District 15 because that's a good example to illustrate. And just for those that are not familiar, they removed all of their middle school screens a few years ago. But what they did is after 1 year, they had one class of students admitted without factoring in the academic performance. They implemented a sibling priority for that class, and that ensured that all students were being admitted via random selection. And what ended up happening is that District 15 was able to work with the leadership of their District 15 superintendent, the executive superintendent, to really problem solve those areas in the schools in that district that had some of these sibling priorities or twin priorities. Look, as an identical twin myself, I have an identical twin brother. I understand, and I can't even imagine what it would have been like going through school and my brother going to another school. So this is very, very sensitive area for me. But the Department of Education has not historically implemented a very broad sibling or twin priority at the middle school admissions process. It's been handled at the local district level. So we're going to continue to work with your incredible superintendent, executive superintendent, and then all the superintendents around what is that going to look like and what are the issues that are coming up this coming year based on the changes we've made to the admissions process.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's, I'll pass it back to Jesse.
So thank you very much, members, for hosting this town hall at this point in time. I wanted to give the Chancellor an opportunity for final remarks, and then we will transition to this second part of our meeting with the Executive Superintendent and Superintendent.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Mr. President Ramjan, and thank you all for the questions. I have to tell you, I do a lot of town halls, and your town hall is one of the most organized and efficient town halls that I participated in. So kudos to all of you as well. And I'm just the warm-up act for our executive superintendent and superintendent. But again, I just want to thank you for your resilience and your patience as we've all gone through this pandemic. I want to assure you that we will continue to do better tomorrow than we did today, and do better today than we did yesterday. And our spirit is that the work is never done, but we can't do this work without your voices. So I want to thank you. Please continue to be safe, take care of yourselves, your families, and take care of one another. And I look forward to seeing you in person at some point in the near future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you so much. So at this time, my dear friends, Chancellor, thank you so much for being here again, and to all of you council members. So I want to thank our council members, Barbara Williams, who's our first vice president, Elena Amenova, who's our second vice president, Erica Cooper, who's our recording secretary, Andy Midas King, who's our treasurer, Howard Pollock, our borough president appointee, Rajendra Kaur, our second borough president appointee, Ted Chang, members Michael Morrison and Robert Tamayev, for doing the wonderful work that we have all done together with myself this past year. Of course, we couldn't have done this together without our amazing, phenomenal administrative assistant, Ms. Crystal Weiss, who has been a really great team player with us to glue us all together and make this all functional. Not forgetting Bibi Matadin from FACE, who is always there to answer all our questions, give us our guidance, and provide amazing support for us here. We had Paul DeCock in the earlier part of our CEC, and then Bibi came over, and Bibi has been phenomenal. And I thank you, Bibi, for all that you do for our council. And at this time, we're going to move right into our second part of our meeting. Jesse, is there anything else I need to say to you? Or let's go right into it.
No, sir, we can go right to the meeting.
Thank you so much. So at this part of our meeting, we'll be joined by our Executive Superintendent for Queens South, Dr. Mauricio de Gavaya, and also Dr. Tammy Pate, and also joining us tonight also, can you please elevate our family leadership coordinator, Sonia Rueda for District 28, and she will also be joining us, and we can't thank her enough for being who she is in our district, and also being one of those blocks, those foundational blocks in this district to really support on every level what we do as a CEC, and being a voice of parents, for students, for teachers, for everybody. So we are grateful to Sonia also. So the first question we have for either our superintendent or Dr. Pate or Dr. Gavaya is a question, again, here it is, one second, please. This question came in from Anya Mitchell, who's a parent and guardian from PS 48. And the question is the Department of Education still supplying devices for students?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
so thank you so much, Dr. Pate. We can ping pong back and forth. First of all, I just have to say this. I always know I'm home when my name is said correctly. So thank you so much principal, President Ramjat. And I always it happens when I'm going on a plane to Trinidad or among family. So I thank you so much for that. It's greatly appreciated. The answer to that is yes. And I didn't want to interrupt the Chancellor when he was speaking because I know we would have some more time together, D28. But just so you know, I'm talking from the Queens South perspective, and I'll let Dr. Pate narrow down where she would like to. So we've had about 55% of our students in Queens South apply for devices. And of that, 42% have gotten their devices. So we are now, I would say, at about a little over 6,000 devices short. And the DOE is still giving out those devices. Now, the interesting thing about that 6,000, it's a combination of some children who never got a device or maybe never applied for one initially. And then there's also children who had devices, lost, broken, you know how that goes, and there's replacing them. We do have a system in which we track to make sure that, who hasn't gotten and who needs replacements. So that's in effect via the Borough Support Office. I also want to bring to your attention, D28, that we do have a new executive director within Queens South to this end, because her name is Laura Kaiser, and she is going to be leading the Borough Support Office. Marlene Wilkes retired in December. We also have a new director of operations, also very important. This is a person who takes care of the plant, making sure that supplies are in place, making sure the test and trace and the COVID pieces to keep our children safe in the building. So his name is Narayan Bharat. So he is also on board. And they manage within this question of devices. So yes, there are still devices available. The link is still active for parents to be able to sign up for devices. And we've also been working with some private providers to get some laptops in for our high school students. So I'm hoping that the next time we meet up that I have a more firm answer around how many devices for our high school students within District 28 will be available. But please, if your child does not have a device, had a device broke or got destroyed in some way, or if you have multiple children in a household, every child is supposed to have a device. So you can have 5 children in your home. Every child, once they're in the K-12 spectrum, they can have a device. So it's a matter of putting in for it. Please note that the delays are really around resource availability. We are not the only city that is looking for devices, and Apple and other suppliers are producing them as much as they can, as quickly as they can. So when we are putting in our orders within the city, the holdup sometimes is on that side of supply. Dr. Pay, I don't know if you want to add anything in there, but that's where we are. But the answer is yes.
Absolutely. I also wanted to shout out some of our grant writing and grant gifting kind that we've received from our local representatives and from the NAACP. I shared this with you already, but it bears restating. 850 Chromebooks was donated, and we divided those Chromebooks among 15 of our highest need schools. And then to specifically address your question, from our parent from 48, your principal is an absolute rock star, and she leverages her community advocacy and power, and she was able to get a laptop contribution of 200 computers for the PS48 family. So every principal is doing all that they can, but I did want to shout out Pat Mitchell, who is going to stay with us forever, right, Pat? She's somewhere here laughing out loud. We love her. And the advocacy is real. And I also wanted to ask Sonia if she would just speak a word about requesting devices, including the fact that new enrollment in the enrollment office does ask whether families need devices, and they are put into the queue for receiving devices. Sonia?
So good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be with you in this space. And I think as Dr. Pate said earlier, mi casa es su casa. So we're very happy to have you here this evening. I put in the information in the chat, and I'll constantly update the chat with different information. So now if you need an iPad, you can request it directly from your school, because what the schools is doing is they're tracking what devices they have, if they need to reassign the device, if they have to request it. So now you can actually request it directly through your school. So I did put that information in the chat.
Okay. Thank you so much, very much, all of you for your contributing there. At this time, my dear friends, we have our esteemed senators on board, and we just want to give them 2 minutes each to just introduce themselves and say a few words. It gives me great honor to introduce and welcome the chairman of the New York City Education Committee of the 11th Senate District, Senator John C. Liu.
Hello, President Ramjatan. Thank you for the invitation and great to see all of our active CEC members. ¿Cómo está, Ted? Nice to see all of you and all the parents who are engaged in the education of our kids. I think the Chancellor was forthright in his answers. You know, I have had many issues deliberated with the Chancellor and the DOE. I don't agree with everything that has happened, but it is important that they at least come and listen to the CECs and take questions directly from parents. And that's exactly what he has done tonight. So I give him applause for that. There's lots of things I can talk about in disagreement, but I will focus on the one thing that I agree with Chancellor Carranza on, which is that the governor in the proposed budget for the state of New York for the coming fiscal year certainly has shifted. In New York City, we call it three-card Monty, shifted $2 billion worth of federal funding that was meant for New York City schools into essentially the state budget to help stave off some other budget cuts at the state level. That is not acceptable. And I know many of my colleagues in the state Senate, as well as the Assembly, will be pushing back because we do need, excuse me, we do need that money for the education of our school kids here in New York City. And the GNT program, the fiasco with the PEP the other week, and also keeping it back on track. That is a discussion, you know, Carranza promised that he would try to fix it, come up with a solution. But in the coming spring and summer, there will also be a full throttle public discussion about what GNT really means and how to move it forward into the future. I was heartened by Mayor de Blasio's comments that it is appropriate to have GNT programs because there are kids who just learn at a different pace. And we need to make sure that they have the opportunities to be challenged as well. And in fact, he specifically said that there should be ways to expand GNT programs. It doesn't make sense that there are 65,000 kindergartners, 15,000 of whom tried to get into a GNT program, and there's less than 5,000 seats for them. So that's a coming discussion that I know CEC28 and all the families in District 28 will be fully engaged in. I certainly will be as well, and look forward to meeting with all of you, hopefully sometime soon in person. Thank you. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Thank you so much, Senator, for being here and being a partner with CEC28. You always come on board when we ask you, and thank you for making time to be with us. We truly appreciate your partnership, the work that you're doing, and listen to our voices. Thank you.
Be safe, everyone.
Very well. Now, my dear friends, it gives us great opportunity to honor to welcome our next senator who is here with us tonight. And he is from the 14th Senate District, and he's also the chairman of the Committee on Cooperations, Authorities, and Commissions. Please, let's all welcome Senator Leroy Conry.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I want to thank you for allowing me to be on your Zoom this evening, your meeting. I want to congratulate you for doing the necessary pivoting so that you can continue to reach your parents. And I'm sorry I missed the Chancellor. I did not get a chance to hear everything that he was saying, but I just heard my colleague John Liu's statements, and I would say that you know, I'm glad that the CEC is making sure that they are meeting with all of the officials in DOE at a high level so that you can make sure that the concerns of the district are kept paramount in their minds. I want to congratulate you, Mr. President. I don't want to pronounce your name improperly, so I won't say it right now because I didn't hear how John Liu said it. So I don't want to mangle it, but I want to thank you for taking the time to be the president of CEC. It's not an easy job. It's an unpaid position. So you're doing it as I did. Many years ago, I was president for School Board 29. Because my children were young and I wanted to make sure that I was, making a opportunity for all of our children in Southeast Queens to do well, and all of our children to get a fair and equal education with the resources necessary so that they can be active and excited learners, because that's the key, getting them excited about learning easy. And right now at the elementary school level, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we give our children and imbue them with the resilience, with the desire, with the foundation, so that they can be strong learners. So I want to thank you and your entire leadership team, Mr. President, for bringing us together. Appreciate Chancellor Carranza for availing himself for honest conversation with you guys. There are many issues around education during COVID-19. There are many things that we need to do to continue to protect our entire school body, from students to teachers to faculty to the people that are maintaining our schools and providing our meals within the schools, and especially those that are cleaning our schools every day, so that our children can remain engaged, that our teachers can feel empowered, that our school building personnel can feel respected as well. So, while COVID-19 has tested our resilience in many ways, most of us have going through things that we never realized we would deal with before. So it's been an opportunity to meet new challenges, to find new ways to work together, to develop opportunities for collaborations, and to do things necessary to ensure that we are providing information and opportunity to people. I want to express my gratitude to all of you, parents especially, who have gone above and beyond in expressing yourselves, so that we can make sure that the issues and concerns are kept in forefront of leadership. John spoke on the state budget and the city budget to a degree. I'm very frustrated that the governor is still playing this budget dance, and even in this time of crisis, where he's cutting out the guts of education sideways in New York City and throughout the state. And I hope that you can work with us to go after to make sure that we don't have this type of budget dance again on the city and state level, where we're fighting over crumbs and spinning our wheels instead of pushing for the revenues necessary so that we can fully fund education. While we may not be able to depend on the federal government, there are billions of dollars that are being left on the table at a state level that we all need to fight for. From the opportunity to do, remote vetting and the opportunity to make sure that we're taxing people that can well afford to pay, the opportunity to deal with even other services and fees and taxes that people could well afford to pay because they have done well in the pandemic. They have actually made money, and they're living in New York State. They're benefiting from being in New York State. We need to make sure that they get back to New York State in a better way possible. And if we can gain those monies, we don't have to fight over $200 or $300 million in the budget to make sure that our primary services, our civil service, social care, healthcare network, especially education, is not fully funded. So, the governor is playing this terrible game, and I hope that this year parents will go to the governor and tell him to stop playing games, put the revenues into the budget so that we can fully fund education at the full dollar amounts, so that every child can have the full resources we need to fight this pandemic with the proper resources to give them the tools so that they can do well.
Thank you.
I just want to say, just a couple of things quickly. We're open. My office is open on a appointment basis only because of COVID, and we have a small office. We cannot just have it open to the public where we had 20 people in there every day. We can't fit them. But if you call my office, we are still doing income tax preparation for people. We're still doing HEAP applications. We're still doing property tax information opportunities for people. Your property tax is coming up. Dental van applications. We're helping people with COVID testing and getting the vaccine, making sure that they're getting on the list. I don't have a secret list. I don't have a direct access, so don't think that. But we are working to get people in to get vaccinated. So, and I would please ask folks to get vaccinated because we got to get back to seeing each other in person. There's some of you that
Most definitely.
haven't seen in more than a year, and it's just been way too long. So thank you for the opportunity to say hello. I think I'm going over my time, and I'll stop here. And thank you for continuing to be such a great resource to our community. Thank you.
And thank you for your services, and we appreciate you being here and look forward to continue working with your team to bring all the resources to our community. And Chantress Keller is amazing. Thank you so much, Senator.
He is amazing. I'm honored to have her on my team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So we move right along with our questions. We don't have that much time, but we'll try to get through as much as we can. Erica Cooper.
Yes, hi, Dr. Pate. And I have a question from a parent or guardian of a child in Q303. Her name is Shirley Hershon. Her question is, when will the temporary admission priority imposed on PS 303Q be lifted, allowing it to accept children from all of District 28 and no longer given preference to those zoned for PS 196?
So as many of you know, because this agreement predated my time here in the district, that wasn't an enrollment agreement that was established a few years ago in order to ensure that students who were zoned and guaranteed a seat at the one school was allowed at least a school in proximity. And at the same time, we were approved to expand the site and to allow for a greater number of children to attend. I am happy to report that we are slated to open that expanded capacity in September of 22. And I have already put in writing with the district planning committee that we would remove that linked agreement for overflow, and the remaining seats that then became available will be open to all District 28 families. So that is in the works. It is in writing. We recognized it as an agreement that had a shelf life, if you will. And so at this point, I can report that I have met twice now with district planning to discuss exactly that topic. And those seats will become available to District 28 students at the opening of the expanded space in September 22.
Thank you. The next question we have is from Howard Pollock.
Thank you, Vijay. This question is from Claudia Ortiz, a parent at Q182. When are in-person after-school programs going to be available for parents and students?
Dr. Digobaya?
Managing multiple devices here. So yes, so there is no definitive date where after school programs are going to be provided just yet. We are looking at social distancing and safety issues as well. And this goes back to this health and safety measures that come first. There is a push at this point, as you know, within elementary schools, where we're really looking to get our students to get back in 5 days a week where possible. After school programming has not been necessarily a part of that conversation just yet, as we're trying to gain mastery around the blended and remote challenges of the regular school day. I'm sure as we move throughout this calendar year, meaning the 2021 year, and things get more stable, that conversation can be brought back into play. But as of now, no definitive date as to when that's going to occur.
Thank you. Next question we have is from Rajwinda Kaur.
Hi, everyone. Okay, the question is from the parent named Titilayo Wasukawa from Q144. The question is, when there are small scope, big impact issues that a school needs to address, yet it hasn't been addressed through the normal channels, who are the different people and the hierarchies to escalate such requests?
Thank you so much for that question. So I can give you, I wish I had a whiteboard. I can draw a web. Because there is a school-based web and then there's a district-based web, and both of those are operating simultaneously. If there's a problem that arises at a school, clearly, if it's a one student type of issue, you address that with the principal. Assuming you get a satisfactory result, and that's fine, it ends there. If there's an issue that goes beyond that and perhaps needs an authority above the school level, then you, the family, or an advocate, the parent coordinator, or the CEC has often escalated that conversation to me. You should know, it's not a secret, that President Ramjatan and I, we call, we text, we communicate, not just monthly for CEC, but all of the time, because if there's an issue that arises that comes to his attention, he has been absolutely amazing in making sure that that gets lifted to me. And then I go to work on the other side of that. If I know the answer and can resolve the issue, I do it. If I have to leverage a higher space, I consult with, first of all, you got to know, Sonia is right here beside me. And because she knows so much, generally we can resolve an issue together. If it requires additional authority or some other knowledge that I'm not privy to, then I absolutely contact our executive superintendent, Dr. Digovaya, and she has been an advocate for more things than you would actually know. There are times that I text her and she's able, because she's in front of the powers that be far more often than I am, she's able to help us with a resolution and find a conclusion. So in short, if there's an issue that does not get resolved at the school level, don't hold on to it and say, woe is me. Please reach out to our CEC and also to our district so that we can support you in getting a resolution. There is a plan, there is a process, but we will walk you through the process.
Dr. Pate, may I add that I have put the information for our colleague, or my partner, Rosa Fenton, who I believe is still here. So I have her information there. Any parent issues or concerns, any 311s that are directed to the district, she handles them. I put her information there, as well as myself. Our emails are in the chat.
Thank you. And Sonia and Rosa, they don't play. Okay, they don't play. I'm just letting you, all of you know, they get things done.
That's right.
I know that. Okay, next question is from Elena Amenova, please.
All right, thank you. It's a long question, so I'm gonna try. Ooh, hold on. My video is not on.
You missed it.
Yes, let me make sure that you guys could see me. All right, there we go. The question is from a parent from PS 101, Simone Dornbach, and Raphael Lina. I don't know why it's two parents. Maybe it's a family. In the spirit of equity and excellence, PS 303 used to be a district-wide school and has been moved to become an overcrowding spillover school for PS 196. PS 303's the academic of excellence through the arts priority admission were changed in 2018 through a PEP vote to alleviate overcrowding at PS 196. But in the spirit of wanting more diverse schools and PS 196 now receiving an annex, can you commit to moving PS 303 back to being a district-wide school as it was intended when it was founded? Thank you.
Absolutely. As we said, or as I answered earlier, yes, the agreement predates my joining the District 28 family, but we did track this down, and this conversation was had with district planning several months ago and over the months, because I won't accept amnesia in this point. But what I should also note is that the documents that were circulated to the community prior to and during the PEP had a very important note in it. And I'm going to read the note as it appeared in the documents. It says, and I quote, however, the admissions priority structure described above will be reconsidered once PS 196 has additional capacity at Q196, which is anticipated to come online in the 2022-23 school year. With that knowledge, I met with, again, district planning, and we made rewrote that agreement, not rewrote the agreement, but agreed that we would reopen all of the seats that were previously held for overflow to the District 28 community. So it will be open to all families in District 28.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pate. So my dear friends and families and parent coordinators, parent teachers, I want to say this to all of you, to all of our principals, to all our parent coordinators, to all our teachers, those administrative people behind the doors, those who clean the bathrooms in the schools, those who prepare the lunches, those who are guiding our kids across the street in the sidewalks. When it's snowing and it's raining, standing there, it takes a lot. And this is beautiful. It's a nice platform here. We look very nice with makeup and nice ties on. But those people behind the scenes never get the thank yous. And I want to first thank them, those heroes and sheroes behind the scenes who are the building blocks of our education system in District 28. As many of you know, our district is very diverse, and it comes with very diverse concerns. So in an attempt to make sure all voices were heard tonight, all questions were heard as best as we can, CEC28 did what we know best. By consensus, we decided to ask questions that we felt represents concerns across the district, and also for questions that represent schools across the district. Now, if your questions were asked tonight is not by choice, we chose not to ask your question, but your question will be sent to the district office, and they can follow up with you also with a response to your questions. Because my dear friends and community members, your voices must be heard. Your questions are important. Your concerns are our concerns. And we were elected to represent all children in this district. It gives me great honor and pleasure to thank all of you, my fellow council members, for your hard and dedicated work. Countless hours we spent planning this town hall tonight. The governor, the chancellor said this was one of the most smoothest town halls he's attended. Yes, that came with a lot of sacrifice and time that we spent as a council preparing for this, like many of you know, till 11 o'clock at night, every Tuesday since last month. Thank you all for your service, your time, your commitment, and Dr. Pate, we thank you. We applaud you for being at the helm of our boat locally here. And to Dr. Gavaya, we thank you for being that one fighting for us when we don't see the fighting happening, but we know it's happening. We want our children to know that they're going to be taken care of. And we have many arms and many legs. We have all the senators, the councilwomen and councilmen in our district. We have the DOE, we have FACE, we have the CC members. We have all of you fighting. I am grateful to serve alongside all of you. Thank you. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just wanted to echo our thanks to the council for your leadership, for your sacrifice, and just for not only a wonderful town hall, but just the way that you represent your families and your students. We deeply, deeply respect and appreciate your service. So we thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pate. I'll give you 1 minute and then we can close off. Dr. Mauricio Duvaya, you'll have 1 minute also, the final word, then we'll close off, yeah? Dr.
Well, I've spoken a lot, and so I'm just going to leave you all tonight with where I like to begin and end, which is gratitude. This absolutely does not get done by one person, not by two people, not by 100 people. It's all of us who are working together, simultaneously rowing this boat forward. And so I cannot express how proud I am to represent District 28 and how proud I am of this CEC. You are unusual. Please know that. And so I'm very thankful to have a place of service in this district. Thank you.
Dr. Gavaya?
Yes, absolutely. I just wrote in the chat, CEC28, your advocacy works. April's been 26 years of being in the Department of Education, and I stay and I show up because I love this work. Your questions, your concerns, keep them coming. They make us better. I cannot stress that. Like, I love it. Like, give me the hard question, put me in the corner, let me know, and because I get to be at the table and advocate and make sure that your needs are being met. It's always a pleasure to be with you, CEC28. Teachers, parents, principals, our superintendent, her team. We are working really hard here during unprecedented times. And it's only, I have to say, the number one thing has been to be in communication. if we keep the lines of communication going, if we keep on asking questions, if we keep on sharing concerns, if we keep on letting the powers that be know what's not working, that's how we get to fix it. So I wrote in the chat, let's keep rising together. I mean it. You know how to reach me. And let's just keep the conversation going, because we are making it through, and we're making it through powerfully. I mean, I'm glad, like the devices question alone, every time a child gets a device, we're closer to being at 100% of our children having what they need. And it's through your advocacy. So thank you for that. And I wish you just a powerful 2021, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening. It's been my pleasure.
Senator Comrie, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, very much appreciate your support.
Oh,
Very-
thank you. Good. Have a good
So
night,
yes,
everybody. Stay safe.
Good to
Thank
see
you, Jesse. Thank you, Senator Comrie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Howard
Thank you,
kids.
everyone.
Hello.
Have a good night,
Hey.
everyone.
Have a good
Good
evening.
night. Stay safe, everyone.
Good night,
to see you all.
everyone.
All right. Take care,
Thank you, Senator,
everyone.
for being here. Hi, Sonia.
Night.
We always see you,
Oh, you
Sonia.
girls are
Good
beautiful.
night.
I miss, you know what I missed tonight? I missed seeing the faces of our families on the big screen. The
Yeah.
100 people
Yes.
see along 50.
Oh, wow.
years.
Howard, look at your children. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, they look beautiful.
Well, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Wow.
DJ, I
Good
think
night.
your son was standing behind you. We got a chance to see him. It's so nice.
Yeah, he's shy. He's the eldest. He doesn't come on camera. So I'm like, come on, it's okay.